All right, welcome to the Krueger Show. Everybody back with us. Jesse Naylor in the house tonight. We're going to talk a little 49ers. Hope everybody's having a good Wednesday. Happy March 1st. We're out of February into March. I love March because I love the draft and free agency and the offseason in the NFL, baseball spring training, March Madness NCAA tournament. The NBA is a little better. So it's one of my favorite months on the sports calendar, and we got a lot to get to. Jesse, good to see you, man. How are you?
Good to see you as well. I'm doing well. Man, if you love spring training, you would love being out in Tampa, Florida, man. We get to see tons of spring training if we want it. We got the Yankees in our backyard playing right across from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's a really cool place. So if you're a baseball fan, Tampa, man, Tampa's a good place to be during spring training.
No question about it. Giants Niner fan in the chat says subscribe to Last Second Sports. Jesse is one of the best content creators. So yes, everybody subscribe if you haven't already to Jesse's channel. And of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in the Bay Area. Check them out in Marin County and Emeryville. They're open 7 days a week in Marin, 5 days a week, Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. More on the great barbecue at Pig and a Pickle in a bit. All right, let's just get right into it. Sometimes I like to direct these shows very, let's go here, let's go there. Sometimes I just like to kind of, especially when it's somebody that we've had on before and we kind of know each other, what are you burning on? So I'll throw it to you. What's the big discussion on your channel? What's the big talking point today with you and the Niners? I know you're immersed in it the way I am as well. The combine is underway. We get to start watching it the next couple of days. Lynch spoke yesterday, which is or Tuesday, that was yesterday. So that's why I wanted to have you on this week because I knew that he was going to speak. What have you been chopping up? What have you been working on?
Yeah, I mean, for me today, the big one, because it all happened late last night, really is when things changed, was this whole cognitive test. And we talked a little bit backstage about it, but just the cognitive tests of Brock Purdy and how well he scored, I think was fantastic. I think the article could have done a better job. I'll just leave it at that, in saying that Trey Lance also was elite and scored in the elite range. And so really the 49ers, no matter how you slice it, have two quarterbacks who are elite in this test that is really driven, unlike the Wonderlic, where it's kind of a bunch of like weird questions and is more of a historical test that you don't really understand. This test is a cognitive test that tells you how players read the field post snap and how quickly they can do it. And I think that is a big deal, and certainly parlays very nicely into how well a quarterback can play at the next level, and has shown to do so according to some of the statistics from this test. So that is the one thing that I've been on today. And then I would say the other thing is, let's get this Nick Bosa extension done quickly, man. Can we do that? Because they've got about 13 million they can free up in money to use towards free agency that is waiting to be spent, Larry, if they can just extend Nick Bosa and get it done quickly instead of doing their typical, let's wait till July or August or drag this thing out. You know what Bosa is going to want to get paid. Bosa knows what he wants to get paid. So just pay Nick Bosa and get this damn thing done and play with that 13 million in free agency. So those are the two things.
Yeah, I mean that, the 49ers, how active are they going to be in free agency? Now I thought I saw a headline that said that John Lynch said that they weren't going to be active for a defensive lineman in free agency. I don't know if you saw that or not.
I didn't catch that. But
I expect the defensive line to be kind of like the biggest, that's the biggest impact point. It's the key to their defense. They've got 7 D-line free agents. This could, and I don't know how many of them they want back. We know that all these guys, they may publicly say they want them back. Ebukam started for them. So, Amenahue played a significant role. I thought Jordan Willis at times played a significant role. Heck, T.Y. McGill played a significant role at times for them this year. Who is the priority on that defensive front? And from the names that I've been looking at as far as connected to them, it seems like it's a lot of guys up front, edge rushers and D tackles that are connected to the Niners.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you a similar question. If you could bring back, and I'll answer your question, but just keep this one in mind in case I forget. But you could bring back 2 of their free agents, knowing roughly like what area of money they're going to be in, who would it be and why. So for me, the priority guys that I would bring back are going to be guys that are going to be inexpensive, but I think can be rotational pieces. Believe it or not, T.Y. McGill fits that for me. I would love to bring a Minahu back, but I feel like he might be a little bit pricey. Willis is probably a little bit more in your price range. But if I'm looking at free agency, I've really kind of tried to break this down. Do you go after a Deron Payne, who I would love to have? In fact, I think the last time I was on, you asked if there was one guy that I could go get. Deron Payne was that guy.
Right.
And since then, he's been franchise tagged. But when I really break it down, I don't think I would want to spend that kind of money on a second defensive tackle. If I'm the 49ers, I'm doing kind of what the Eagles did with their defensive line. You've got your core group of a few guys. Jackson, you're trying to develop, so I would put him in that core until you think he's not any good. Armstead's in there. Bosa's in there. Outside of that, you're trying to develop a guy like Kalia Davis. You can bring back some of those veteran pieces like I talked about, but why not go get some one-year guys who are veterans that you know rotationally can come in and be a menace? Somebody like a Justin or a Robert Quinn. Maybe both of those guys. They're not going to cost you a lot of money, and you can put them on a one-year deal. You know they're going to produce as long as they're healthy, especially in rotational areas, and you remain flexible going into the next offseason, and you can kind of rinse and repeat and continue to do this. You've got your core guys. No need to go out in free agency and pay somebody else $10 to $15 million and be locked in long term. You can only have so many cornerstone players. So don't go get that guy. Go get guys that are good, inexpensive, and more importantly, one-year deals so you can remain flexible for many years to come. That's how I would attack it.
Who was the guy besides Robert Quinn you named?
Houston.
Oh, Justin Houston.
Yeah.
That's not bad. That's not bad. I like the idea. The guys that I mean, I like Zach Allen. I like the idea
I love Zach Allen.
getting better by taking guys away from the teams I'm competing against. So I would try to take Poona Ford away from Seattle, and because I think he's a really good run plugger, and I would love to take Zach Allen away from the Cardinals, and I'd love to take A'Shawn Robinson away from the Rams. Somebody suggested that A'Shawn Robinson may sign for a really low figure. And if that's the case, man, I'd be all about that. He's 330 pounds. I feel like he was a key guy in that NFC Championship game loss in LA. I thought he played with his hair on fire that day. So I kind of, those are the guys I would lean towards. Deron Payne would be so fantastic, but I think they may tag him and trade him. And I think they're looking for 2 number ones. And I don't think the Niners can go 2 number ones on Deron Payne right now.
I don't think he's worth 2 number ones though either.
I don't either. I mean, if they were late ones and he gave you double digit, 12 sack seasons or whatever, maybe. But yeah, to me, I'll say this. I do love a lot of the defensive linemen in this draft. There's a bunch of pass rushers. So I don't know that I would pay the crazy free agent freight. I guess if I was looking at a couple priorities, I might prioritize Jimmy Ward and maybe Ebukam. I mean, I don't know. Ebukam's gotten paid a lot. He's been banged up. Jimmy Ward's older, but I think it's gonna be hard to replace Jimmy Ward. And Ebukam to me was more of a difference maker than Willis or a Menahue when he's healthy. That's a big if. I like Mosley, but the knee injury that complicates things for me. And I'll say this, I would be choosing only from the defensive side of the football, none of the offensive free agents, McGlinchey, Brendel, Brunskill, Croft, all the offensive free agents. I'm not that keen on, but maybe Ebukam or Menahue. I could go with either one of those guys, but I would like to have Jimmy Ward back. And I would like to see Robbie Gould come back. To be honest, I don't know how do you feel about Robbie Gould?
Yeah, definitely. And I was thinking like more specifically D line, but the guys that you mentioned, by the way, are not going to be expensive. Allen will be a little bit higher, but I think even he's in that $10 million range, and he's a guy I've thrown out as well. I do like Allen a lot.
Scheme versatile, motor.
Exactly. And he's also, if you look at his numbers, Larry, he's kind of under the radar, but he's on that Trey Hendrickson trajectory.
Right.
Very, very similar trajectory. I'm not saying he's going to be him, but if you can take a flyer and you put him with Kocurek with Bosa and Armstead, you might get some amazing things out of him. And he's not that expensive. So I'd be willing to pay him $10 million a year, multi-year deal. I don't think that's breaking the bank. That's not going out and spending $20 million on Daron Payne. So that I agree with. As far as free agency on offense, I mean, I'm not bringing any of those guys back on offense either, Larry. And if I'm spending big on anybody, it's going to be a center. Because centers, when you spend big, it's not the same as spending big on a tackle. Very different figures. And a little bit more stability.
Would you bring back Brendel? I mean, Roberto here in the chat says Brendel's a must. I think Brendel, as a Pro Bowl alternate, probably priced himself out. I'd almost rather go for like a veteran guy with a little bit more heft, like a Rodney Hudson, and just hope that he can stay healthy. I don't know. I mean, it's a risk because he's been hurt an awful lot the last 3 years.
You've got guys like Bradbury out there. Who's the one from Cleveland? Pacheco or something, whatever his name is. He rated really, really well. He's younger. He's not going to cost more than, 10, 12 million. What's interesting to me, and this is why I would spend bigger on a center. Kyle Shanahan said this when Alex Mack retired. He said the center position is the heartbeat of the offense. Yet, this team has not had the same center in back-to-back years.
I know. It's amazing. They go with a different guy every year.
So go get a guy who's in his 20s and you can pay 5 years and have some continuity there. And if you're not going to pay McGlinchey, which they shouldn't, too expensive, and it's not an improvement over Mike McGlinchey last year, so I'm not paying that kind of money, go improve somewhere else. You have to improve the offensive line. You're not going to be able to do it at right tackle, likely. So why not do it at the center position? Improve somewhere for sure, and then be serviceable as you can at right tackle. That's the way I would handle the offensive line.
My only question is I'm looking at Jason Poe thinking, man, he could be a center. And then I've heard from some Niner people that they feel like Zakelj could be a center. I think center might be a spot where you might be able to get by with just a serviceable, a street free agent type caliber backup center. Maybe you bring back a Brunskill, but and then see, get in camp and between Zakelj and Poe and Brunskill, see who wins the job.
So where do you upgrade then?
I think Zakelj might be an upgrade off Brendel. I think Zakell's stronger and bigger and more powerful at the point. As far as where would I upgrade? I mean, I think they're probably going to have to invest in a right tackle. I don't know where that's coming from, but that can't be, shrugged off. Starting right tackles don't grow on trees. If you don't want to pay McGlinchey, I don't think they can keep McGlinchey just because the Bears have $94 million in cap room. And, I think they're going to come after McGlinchey full bore. And I don't think the Niners can compete with that. So I think McGlinchey's gone. And I think Brendel's probably gone. So that's going to be a big part of this offseason is replacing 2/5 of your offensive line. And, I think you're going to have to do it in both draft and free agency. And I don't know that there's an easy answer to either spot, but I don't know that they were getting, Brendel was solid this year, and McGlinchey was graded out strong as a run blocker, but I don't think they were playing at such a level where you could not replace them or consider or possibly get anybody who would give you something similar. I think Brendel to Zakelj might actually be a favorable transition for the Niners.
Yeah, here's the thing: if they feel like it's a wash, then I don't want to go the Zakelj route. I'm fine going the Zakelj route if they're looking at it like maybe this guy could have a leap like Banks had, or maybe they think Burford will have the leap that Banks had, and so that's where the improvement comes from. What I don't want to see is it's a lateral move at center and a downgrade at right tackle, or you overpay McGlinchey and you stay the same at right tackle. They need to improve the offensive line. I need to see
Yeah.
improvement. And so unless you're going to move on from Burford or slide Burford to right tackle and go sign a really good guard, or you think Poe could be that guard or whatever, if those guys are in house and they believe without a doubt, unequivocally, those guys are in house and they can improve, I'm fine with that. I'll trust their judgment on that because they see these guys every day. But if that is not a for sure, they have to improve somewhere. And my belief is McGlinchey's not great, but I don't think there's a clear improvement in free agency at right tackle at all. So because of that, you have to choose center or right guard. I like Burford. I think they like Burford. They would like to see him grow. And so the only clear upgrade you can make in free agency is the center position. So I don't know. They gotta be better though. They have to be better on that right side of the line.
There's two centers I really like. I really like the kid from Minnesota, John
Bradbury,
Michael Schmitz. And I think he's going to be probably a first round pick. So they're not going to get a chance at him. But I like the guy who won the Outland Trophy for the Wolverines, Olusegun Olawatimi, 6'3", 310 pounds, really strong. I mean, really strong. And I thought the Oregon center wasn't bad this year either. Alex Forsyth, and they're saying that he might be there, later in the draft. Do you like Forsyth?
I love him. I love him.
He's a little bit of a tough guy, a little brawler.
He's smart. He's agile. He gets to the next level. He can pull with zero issue. He anchors well. That game was ugly between Oregon and Georgia, but if you just watch him, he was not overwhelmed at all. He was like the one guy on that team that was not overwhelmed by Georgia whatsoever. I mean, he looked like he belonged, no questions asked. And we know that Georgia's front is very talented. So he, like I said, he can move, he can anchor. He's likely going to slide in 4th to 7th, maybe even UDFA, depending. I would love to get him on the roster. And I think he can be an upgrade over Brendel. And I think he was a 4-year starter, if I'm not mistaken. So he's played a lot of football. He probably could slide in right away. I just got to make sure that you're upgrading. You got to upgrade somewhere, man. Figure it out.
Yeah. I was looking to see who won the Morris Trophy. It was Andrew Voorhees, the offensive lineman for SC, who blocked for Caleb Williams.
Yep.
I always look at the Morris Trophy because I think that's a pretty solid place to start if you're looking for, offensive linemen, at least on the West Coast.
That name sounds familiar. Was there a Voorhees that played for the Cardinals? I feel like there was.
That's a good question. Yeah. Maybe he's got an older brother. I don't know
how do you
about
spell
that.
it?
It's a Vorhees. Voorhees. Andrew Voorhees.
Maybe not.
Okay, let's get to John Lynch in Indy. This to me was really, really interesting on a lot of fronts. I don't know how much you've talked about it, but when it came time to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, he showed a lot more tact than Kyle Shanahan. But at the end of the day, it's probably run its course.
Run its course, yeah.
He made it seem like a flu. You know what I mean? Suddenly the Garoppolo is referred to as a flu. It's run its course. But he, unlike Shanahan, who just was very almost bitter about it, Lynch showed some graciousness and he complimented him and this and that. But at the same time, he says it's run its course. So Garoppolo, goodbye. Then when it came time to talk about Purdy, we're saying prayers. We're saying our prayers. And a lot of details about talking to the doctor. It sounded like the doctor was the one who pushed off the surgery and talked about a variety of different time frames. But it just, the way he talked about it, it seemed like Brock is his number one. Maybe that's just the read I got. But then when he was asked about a third quarterback coming in, he said, yeah, we may have to look at the quarterback market for a third quarterback. Then when it came time to talk about Trey, that's where this thing got really interesting, in my opinion, because, and maybe I'm reading into this. So that's why I'm glad you're here, because you're as into this as I am. he said he's got to play, talking about Trey. That's the biggest challenge. We have a team that's ready to go, and he's got to get out there and play. So he made it seem like it sounded very similar to what the Warriors have been saying about James Wiseman, who's now in Detroit. It sounded
played well, actually.
What's that? Playing well.
Played well.
Playing well. Yeah. Let's note that. But I mean, he's got to play. That's the biggest challenge. Well, if you like him and he's anything like the prospect that you wanted, then the fact that he's got to play and Brock's injury kind of sets up for him to play right now. And that's the biggest challenge. The implication was he's got to play, but our team's ready to go. And the implication was he's not ready to go. And am I being overtly negative or looking for something there? That's how I read that. He's got to play, though. That's the biggest challenge here. We got a team that's ready to go, as if to say, almost like, hey, like he's preparing like the reasoning for why he's going to approach other teams about trading for Trey. It's like, hey, we love him. He just needs to play and we're ready to win. And these things don't jive. And I think that's what it sounds like John Lynch is getting prepared to sell to other general managers around the NFL. I don't know that that's the case, but that's what I got out of that. What did you get out of his comments in Indy about the 3 quarterbacks?
Yeah, well, what I got out of that particular statement is that Brock Purdy is their preference if he's healthy. That's what I took out of it. It's going to be hard to play Trey Lance if Brock Purdy's healthy, is the way that I took that situation. It's going to be hard for him to get playing time here because we kind of have our guy if healthy. But if he gets a chance, because he said something along these lines as well, if he gets a chance, he's really got to take a hold of it. He's got to remain healthy, and he's got to show that he can be the guy. We have the confidence he can do that. But much like Brock Purdy did, and he referred back to Brock Purdy when he got the chance, how he took a hold of things. So that's the way that I read that situation. Not necessarily that we're ready to trade him yet, but it's going to be hard because we don't necessarily know for sure what's going on with Purdy yet. If Purdy's there, he's the guy. But if he's not, then Trey's got to stay healthy and he's got to take a hold of the situation. So that's how I read that. I mean, it's different than the way you read it, but can you see where I'm coming from on that?
Yeah, well, I think you read it right in that he didn't come out and say, hey, Brock's our choice.
Right.
But I guess with Brock being injured and them not having any other quarterbacks, it shouldn't be a challenge at all to find playing time for Trey Lance from where I'm sitting.
I don't think it'll be a challenge to get him reps during the preseason, but remember when they kept giving this 6-month mark for Purdy. However, when everybody reported it, they would say 6 months, but they had him back at the 5-month mark. You remember that? It was Ian Rappaport. He's out 6 months, but he'll be ready for training camp. Well, that's not 6 months. That's 5 months. Right. Maybe there's this thought that, yes, you say 6 months, 6 months, 6 months, but we think he can be back with the throwing at 3 months. That'll be enough. As long as he's ready to go by the beginning of September, he can slide in and be the starter. I don't think he's earned that. I think he's earned it from the standpoint that if they're competing, that he should be the front runner, and Trey would have to move heavens and all water to be the starter. But if he's not there all offseason, I don't think he's earned the cachet to just slide in week 1. Be like, yeah, I'm here. I know it's the 7th of September. We're ready to roll. Brock Purdy's our starter. I don't think he's earned that, but maybe the 49ers think he has earned that. Maybe the 49ers think he has that cachet. And even though he was a rookie last year, he can skip all offseason and be just fine and slide in week 1. And so when he says playing time, he means the regular season, not necessarily, hey, he's going to have the whole offseason. That's great. But we need to see him play actual football when it matters. If Brock's here, it's going to be hard for him to see that field.
And then what do you do? If Brock's there and healthy, what do? Do you sit there and you've invested all these picks in Trey? You just let him sit. When he said Trey's got to play, I almost feel like that's kind of a consensus opinion. Trey's mom and dad, Trey's got to play. Trey's agent, Trey's got to play. People around, John Lynch's just sense of development. Trey's got to play, but Brock's in front of Trey, and to me, it just seems like, it seems like Trey is. It's like, why you had an opportunity there to say we really like Trey, and this is going to be a golden opportunity for him to grab the job and run with it, and we have confidence that he can do exactly that. None of that was said. None of it. It's like he's got to play, and that's the biggest challenge because we've got a team that's ready to go. I thought the implication was Trey's not ready to go. I don't know. Then I had Jordan Elliott on earlier today from the Combine, and Jordan, right, from Niners Nation. I don't know if you've ever had him on
I like
show
Jordan. He's a good kid.
But he made a point that he thinks that the Niners may still have some interest in Aaron Rodgers. And I couldn't believe that when I heard that, Jesse. I was like, first of all, I just saw Rodgers on the tee in Pebble Beach saying, where are you going? Not going to San Fran, and then he had a nice drive. He wasn't even nervous about it. So he's on the record of saying he's not coming to the 49ers. But then I do get the feeling that Gutekunst, the GM for the Green Bay Packers, is done with Rodgers. They want to go in a different direction. If you were trying to do right by Lance and you thought highly of him, sending him to Green Bay for Rodgers, I'm not saying I would do it because I think that's very short-sighted, but that could be a win-win if your goal is to win the Super Bowl and get Aaron Rodgers, but then they may wind up having Brett Favre there for the next 10, 12 years, and you may look really, really bad over that long period of time. So, but I did find that interesting. And if you were going to sit there and say to Trey, you're not, we're going with Brock. He beat you out. He's playing at a higher level. And you have to play. We all agree. And we're going to put you somewhere. We're going to send you somewhere where you can have a great career, this great stability in Green Bay. I don't know. I mean, that he goes to Green Bay and wins there. Rodgers comes here. Maybe he gets the 6th ring. I don't know. I just don't know where one thing I don't know, Jesse, is I don't know how much pressure is actually on John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan to get that 6th ring. Because when they don't win games, there's Dr. York at practice, and there's a tightness around the Niners that I don't understand because they've been one of the more successful franchises. It's like Lynch and Shanahan are literally coaching and GMing for their job every year. And I wonder if that standard comes from Jed or Dr. John. We know the franchise views themselves very strictly by Super Bowl titles, but can you really have a Super Bowl or bust kind of a mantra? Where would you be on that? And what kind of reaction would there be? What would your reaction be if tomorrow Trey Lance got traded to Green Bay for Aaron Rodgers? What would your take be?
Well,
who would get the better of that deal?
I would be shocked if that was the deal. Here's what I've been saying about Aaron Rodgers, because it's funny, Larry. I said this a day or so ago on Twitter, but you tell me what's changed from last year to this year. We got a team coming off of an NFC championship. You have the quarterback who finished the year having surgery and messing with your offseason plans in some sort of fashion. You have Trey Lance, who you still have no idea about. You have Tom Brady, who retired, and you're hearing rumors still somehow that he's going to come out of retirement and play for the 49ers. And you have Aaron Rodgers out there. Green Bay's not sure about what they're going to do. Are they going to move on to Love? What are they going to do? And is he available to be traded for? Nothing has changed in 1 year. The names have changed. It's not Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy, but nothing technically has changed in a year. They haven't figured anything out. So when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, they're going to want a lot. I also believe that they are good with Jordan Love. So I don't think the 49ers have the assets to make a deal directly with Green Bay to get Aaron Rodgers. However, if they kick Trey Lance to, I don't know, the Colts or the Panthers or the Commanders for, let's say, a second and a third round pick, you go to Green Bay and say, listen, we'll give you our second round pick that we just got from this team. We're giving you 4 third round picks, and we're going to give you next year's first round pick for Rodgers. That might be enough to get it done. So now we've got Aaron Rodgers on this team. They've moved on from Trey Lance. Well, that tells me that there is pressure to win now. That tells me they never really believed in Trey. It's fine. It also tells me that although a lot of the fan base is confident in Brock Purdy to win a Super Bowl and be the guy, that they're not necessarily sure about that either. But they also have Brock Purdy to kind of be that fallback for once Aaron Rodgers retires. You have Brock Purdy for a year, and he can either prove out to be the guy or he's your bridge quarterback until you then get the guy again. That's the way that I would read that situation. And I do think that if you go get Aaron Rodgers, first of all, you better win the Super Bowl. And if you don't win the Super Bowl, you better hope that Trey Lance isn't any good because it's going to look really, really bad if those things happen.
And it's amazing how everybody is so enamored with Jordan Love. Jordan Love barely has played, right? I mean, am I missing something? He had 1 touchdown and no picks and 195 yards passing this year. I don't know what he do last year. He played 6 games. He completed 58%, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. Where is this belief that Jordan Love's the answer for Green Bay? I'm not saying that he's not, and people in the chat are saying the same thing. Hey, they got Jordan Love. No, I get it, but is Jordan Love the guy? I mean, is he, if I'm Green Bay, the thing why Lance, I think, would be intriguing. 1, he's from that part of the country. 2, you have his number 1 receiver already. So, you got
and
that.
You wear green and gold.
Exactly. You wear green and gold, and he's a great kid. Yeah. And he's worth investing in. I don't know if I agree with you. I kind of think it's short-sighted. Well, you didn't say that, but I agree with you that the Niners would instantly be putting a lot of pressure on themselves to win the Super Bowl with Rodgers. Because if you don't, and Trey goes to Green Bay and becomes Brett Favre, you got some explaining to do. Unless the trade is not, and I agree, I don't see Green Bay necessarily making that trade straight up, but I'll say this, based on the age of the 2 guys, I don't know that straight up wouldn't, be fair value, to be honest. I don't know what do you think Rodgers has left? He had kind of a down year this year. You think he's got 2 years left, 3 years left? I mean, NFL, he hasn't missed a game in a long time, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think if you make that deal, you have to get a commitment from Rodgers that he's going to give you 2 years. And the reason I say 2 years is because he has to outlive the first round pick you're probably going to give up for him, which is next year's. You can't have him play for a season, be gone, and then, you don't have a quarterback. I mean, you have Purdy, but you're kind of saying that you don't necessarily believe in Purdy being the guy either if you trade for Aaron Rodgers. That's the way I see that. So you need to have that first round pick if Aaron Rodgers isn't here. So I would need that commitment from him. Aaron Rodgers, by the way, his contract is astronomical. However, for year 1, the team he's traded to is only $15.79 million, man. That's all it's going to cost.
That's unique. Why is that, Jesse? I mean, I don't know how. I don't want to ask you a bunch of questions about the cap if you don't know, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I have no idea why that's the case.
Yeah, it's the cap hit's so big because the signing bonus and what they're spreading out on that signing bonus. So all that is going to hit the Green Bay Packers. So that brings that cap number down significantly this year.
What do you think the reaction is in the Bay Area if that trade is made? Because Rodgers is also hey, I was immunized and, that whole controversy. And he became he's kind of might be a little bit more right leaning, and the Bay Area is definitely a left leaning place. It hasn't bothered Nick Bosa fans, by the way, nobody's
no, not at all.
But, so it's like, ultimately, if you can play, people don't really give a crap. But what do you think do you think the reaction will be excitement? Yeah, they're going for it, and they'll have Purdy as the backup, and they've got Rodgers and all this excitement, or would there be like, hey man, you were incredibly short-sighted, and Trey Lance, you should never have traded Trey Lance. You never had a good plan to develop him. You never had a good plan to make him a better player in any way, shape, or form. And now you're moving off of him. Do you think there would be a lot of negative, or do you think it would be overwhelming positive because Rodgers is Rodgers and he wore the Montana t-shirt under his pads at Cal and, so on and so forth?
I think if you polled the 49er fans before it happened, you'd have about 85% that would say, hell no. They would either say, we got Trey, or we got Brock, or they would say, we got both and we'll figure it out. If you poll them right after it happens, I bet you 85% would say they love it because they're going all in and they believe that with Aaron Rodgers, you can win. And I think it's hard to think otherwise. I mean, I'm a Trey Lance guy, and I know that you're a Brock Purdy believer, right?
I actually believe in both. I just believe that Brock's better now.
For
but
sure.
I actually think
okay.
that Trey
I don't want to make it sound like you don't believe in, because I believe in Brock also to a different extent.
Trey is the better quarterback down the road. Like,
yeah.
To me, it's like Brock is the money in hand, and it would be like Brock is like $100 bill in my hand. Trey's like 10 grand that I may or may not get in 5 years.
Yeah, he's a stock option.
Yeah.
Something, yeah, that your grandma gave you.
If you told me, close your eyes, can you picture Trey Lance being one of the best players in the NFL in 3 or 4 years? Yeah, I can. Yeah. I absolutely can.
Okay, so it's funny because I think a lot of people in the community would label me the Trey Lance guy, and I think a lot of people in the community would label you the Brock Purdy guy.
Right.
It's interesting though, Larry, because what you just said is exactly what I've been saying. I've been calling Brock Purdy Mr. Right, or Mr. Right now, and Trey Lance possible Mr. Right.
And I understand, and we talked about it. I understand the argument of, hey, you know what? I like what I'm seeing from Brock, but not to look the gift horse in the mouth, but can he beat Allen and Mahomes and Herbert and all these awesome guys, over the next 3 to 5 years? Where I don't know, I think that's the debate is there enough upside potential, or are we seeing the best of Brock right now?
Yeah.
I don't know.
If you said, Jesse, you've got to bet everything, every possession you have on one guy between Lance and Purdy to win more in 2023, more regular season games, who are you betting? I would say Brock Purdy, no questions asked. But if you then said, I want you to take all those same assets and everything you own, and one of these guys in the next 3 years is going to be a top flight quarterback without fail. We know that for a fact. You don't know which one. Which one are you betting on? It would be Trey Lance, and it would also be without hesitation. And that's where I'm at on this situation. So I think a lot of fans are similar to where we're at, but I think you and I both agree that Aaron Rodgers right now is still a better option right now than Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. I believe that, at least. Is it fair to assume that you also believe that?
I do. I guess I do because, but I expect Trey and Brock. I think the arrow's pointing up, for both.
For sure.
So, like, if Brock didn't have this huge elbow thing, I think he would have shown up in camp a little bit more sudden, a little bit better shape, a little stronger with a stronger arm, a little quicker release, just a little bit better overall. And he's an ascending player, and I think Rodgers is going down. So it's like really difficult to say where exactly they're going to intersect. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would probably tend to agree with you that Rodgers right now is probably the better option to winning next year's Super Bowl than Trey, or definitely than Trey, and probably than Brock. But I don't know. There's something about Rodgers that looks like milk that's past its sell date. You know what I mean? There's something about Rodgers that makes me think that he may not have a Brady, ridiculous long finish, that it may be he had 25 touchdowns and 12 picks this year. Next year, those numbers could get a little closer. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure Brian Billick one time came on the radio with me and said, the hardest thing to evaluate in the NFL is the quarterback versus what's the circus going on around the quarterback. And that's where I just have a hard time with it. It's like, I don't know. I didn't watch Green Bay every week. I bet him 3 or 4 times this year. I was very disappointed in Rodgers. But he had rookie receivers. He lost Devontae Adams. They had offensive line injuries. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like it's hard to evaluate. Was he really backsliding, or were they just their surrounding cast is just kind of eroding?
Well, I'll say he can make all the throws still. I mean, he will still wow you if you take his best throws of the year. So that hasn't gone anywhere. The problem, though, with him is you said you can't separate the player from the circus and you don't know what's what. Aaron Rodgers is the circus. He is the circus.
Well, that's true.
And so that's another thing. Are you equipped to take that on? If you get Aaron Rodgers, are you going to get him for OTAs, or is he going to want to do his retreats and take ayahuasca until August? And are you equipped for the Monday or Tuesday morning shows with Pat McAfee and spilling all the beans and the things I don't know. I mean, that's the question that the 49ers have to ask. I think if you're just getting the player plugs in perfectly and you can absolutely win a Super Bowl and gives you a better chance than Trey or Brock. I don't think that's a question. But how much circus comes with that? Is he willing to be there early? These are things that we need to know. And also, is he willing to be here for 2 years? I think that is another must-have if you trade for Aaron Rodgers.
And from what I'm hearing, that maybe the price tag that you threw out before on Rodgers might have been the old price tag, and that the actual price tag for Rodgers is quite a bit lower than that. I mean, that's what I've read that in the last week. You've probably seen some of those same stories as well. I don't know. I can't imagine that Gutekunst would allow Aaron Rodgers to just come to San Francisco. It doesn't seem likely, but if they have a belief in Jordan Love, or if somehow they love Trey Lance or had some, I don't know. I mean, in my mind, you could do worse than Trey Lance and a pick, because I think Trey Lance has got potential, but at the same time, it's, I don't know. I don't know. I personally think that the old price tag was going to be like 2 1s and 2 2s. And I don't think that that's the price anymore. I think that he's kind of just enough of a pain in the ass to them that they want him out of there. I mean, that's the sense I get of it. But, and then the other part of it is like these guys that are at the top of the food chain in whatever sport we're talking about, in this case, the NFL, they kind of call their own shots, don't they? I mean, like, I know the Jets and all these other teams are out there. Yeah, the Jets would die to have them. But at the end of the day, don't you think that like guys like Rodgers almost will say, hey, I'll go there, or I'll go here. I won't go there. And I won't, whether they have a no trade or not. It just seems like they make so much money. They're such central figures that they kind of get sent where they want to get sent. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong by that, but I don't even know that Rodgers would want to be a Niner. He might feel bitter about the fact they bypassed him. But people say, well, he's going to go to the Jets. I don't think it's simply about who's got the most compensation. I think I think Rodgers may have a say in some of this.
Well, he has a no trade clause. And I think even if you have a younger player that doesn't have a no trade clause, they kind of dictate where they want to go, because if they're just simply unwilling to sign long term, then why are you going to give up all the assets in the world to bring in a guy that's not going to re-sign with you? So I think there is some truth to what you're saying. Now, Aaron Rodgers may not be worth what he once was, and you may be able to get him for less. However, if you're sending him to the 49ers, I think that price is going to go up slightly. And that's why I say, hey, I think you can trade Trey Lance for a second and a third. I do believe that. I do. And so if you can flip like maybe multiple of those third rounders and a second rounder and next year's first, which, by the way, future firsts in the trade value counts like a second rounder this year because it's a future pick. You don't know where it's going to fall. It's not right now. So you're sending next year's first, a second this year, and some of those thirds. I mean, I think that deal gets it done. And I don't think that's necessarily overpaying if you get 2 years of Aaron Rodgers. I don't, because if you can win a Super Bowl, then it all becomes worth it. And then, by the way, when he's done, you got all your assets back again. It's not that big of a deal.
Can Shanahan and Rodgers coexist? In your mind?
That's the I don't know. That's the $1 million question right there, Larry. I don't know the answer to that question. I really don't.
John Lynch referenced yesterday when he spoke in Indy that he texted Tom Brady.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, he shared. John Lynch doesn't let anything out of the bag, but what do you think he actually texted Tom Brady? Do you think it was just simply, "Hey, congrats on a great career," or was it like, "Congrats on a great career, stay in shape and stay near your phone"? We may need to call you later. I mean,
Yeah.
where do you? Tom can go anywhere, and he's at
You can.
home.
You can.
And if the Niners season last year played out the same this year, they lost a quarterback early and they lost a quarterback in the middle of the year. And now we're looking ahead. Do you think that phone call gets made in the middle of the year to Tom Brady? And do you think he jumps at it? Or do you think he says, you know what? My legacy is my legacy. I'm leaving it right there.
Man, I don't know. Tom Brady's really hard to read. I saw every Tom Brady game this year. I live in Tampa, and that's the game that's always on. I got to see him live versus the Ravens. And one thing I kept saying all year is, man, Tom Brady is still Tom Brady. Much like I just said with Aaron Rodgers, he can make all the throws and he doesn't get sacked a lot. No, I mean, you were seeing a lot of those good things. However, what I started to realize towards the end of the season, and it really showed itself in the playoffs, he's afraid to get hit. He doesn't want to get hit anymore. He's not playing against elite defenses like the 49ers and Dallas and taking 0 sacks because he's just the great Tom Brady and he gets rid of the ball so quickly and you're never going to outsmart Tom Brady. That's not why. It's because he's just absolutely afraid to get hit. He's not willing to take a shot to deliver a ball the way that he used to. And because of that, it was kind of confirmed when he retired and he said, "Hey, I don't like getting hit anymore." That's what his dad said that he had told him. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to get hit. So unless you have a drastic change in heart and you're really willing to take those shots again, I don't think he's coming back. However, I do think that a midseason thing could be a possibility because you're not having to go through all of it. And I do believe that John Lynch threw in some cheeky joke like, "Hey man, great career. I would have loved to have you at some point. Ha ha ha." Something like that to kind of leave the door open and see what Tom Brady would reply with. If Tom Brady's like, "Yeah, I would have loved to be there too, ... It's like, "Oh, okay, we got something here." You know what I mean? That's the way that I feel he probably did, is like, let's just throw it out there and see if there's any possibility that this door is actually open. I believe that. Yeah.
Okay, so if Lance and Purdy are 1-2, 2-1, and Rodgers too expensive, Brady stays retired. Now they're Lynch has referenced a third quarterback. Who's your third quarterback? How much are you willing to spend on that third quarterback? Is your third? Can the Niners, because of their defense, if they can, rebuild it a little bit, and their weapons, can the Niners get a quarterback who would go somewhere else to be number 2 to come there to be number 3? Because that's ultimately what they may be offering. Or, who's going to be that third quarterback? Can they aim high? I mean, Derek Carr is obviously going to get huge money.
Yep.
Brady's retired, but there's other guys. There's Carson Wentz now out there. He made a lot of money this last year. You have Marcus Mariota out there. I thought he looked great against the Niners in Atlanta this year. There's Sam Darnold. There's Teddy Bridgewater. There's Jacoby Brissett and others, Andy Dalton. Somebody threw out Nick Mullins' name earlier today. We don't know what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson. He may get traded. Sounds like the Ravens want him back. Who's the third quarterback if 1 and 2 are Purdy and Lance? Who's 3? Who's the ideal 3?
I think, well, the ideal 3, who I think it'll be, is somebody closer to Mullins, to be frank, or a rookie that they draft. I think that's realistic. who now, if Purdy's out, then a lot of all those names that you just threw out are viable options because they're going to need a backup, and those are backup quarterbacks. Now, Wentz, I think there's a slight possibility you could get him to be the third guy just because he's really, I mean,
Broken. He's
talk about a
broken.
fall from grace. That guy has it. So all those other guys I think are for sure backups. I think Wentz could be a backup somewhere, but I also think he might be willing just maybe to be that third string guy on an off possibility. But if it's ideal and I'm getting who I want, Mariota or Heineke. That's what I want. And it depends on your starter. It
It's
depends on
interesting.
your start. If your starter is Trey Lance, then I want Mariota because I want Mariota to mimic Trey Lance. And if your starter is Purdy, then I want Heineke because Heineke is Brock. I mean, they're the same dude roughly. So
Gamer.
yeah, gamer, undersized, quick,
Not
takes
afraid.
risks.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very, very similar. So that's what I would prefer to do. So we'll see how it plays out, but I don't think either one of those guys are necessarily willing to be third stringers. I wouldn't if I'm them.
So you're one of the only people that is kind of, I've said Mariota. Now maybe I'll admit I get too swayed, and this is not just football. This happens in other sports too. When a player plays well against my team, I hold them in higher regard. And he had a game against the Niners where he completed 93% and they converted a boatload of third downs and he looked really, really good. Am I putting too much into that Niner game? What is it? What's the side of Mariota that I'm maybe not seeing? Is there what do people who don't like Mariota not like about him? He's 6'4", he's 220, seems like a good kid. He throws a pretty good ball. He's definitely fast. I mean, what is it? If you don't like Mariota, what's the reason?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what's the area you don't like. Do you not like him as a backup? Because I don't know. I don't know why anybody wouldn't want him as a backup. I can understand not liking him as a starter. I mean, what has he proven to be a long-term starter in this league? It's nothing. You know,
Right.
he's been given his chances. That's not the case. Mariota, actually, for me, Larry was my number one quarterback target last offseason because not only could he do some of the same things that you're going to want to do with Trey, but he was what, the second pick in a draft? He's
Right.
been through
On
it.
Winston.
He was supposed to be the franchise guy. He ended up not being the franchise guy. And I just thought from a mental standpoint, he really could be there for Trey Lance and help him through some of those ups and downs that he's going to see and the boos if you're not playing well and really just navigating through being the franchise guy and would be able to help him there. That's what the way that I thought of Mariota. And so he was my number one target last year as the backup. Unfortunately, he was able to get a starting job. Well, unfortunately, because now Brock Purdy's here and that's great. But that's who I wanted last year. So if Trey Lance is the starter, then that to me remains the same. But you know, I don't think I think it's hard to find a lot wrong with Mariota as your backup quarterback. That's just me personally. As a
Yeah.
starter, sure, but I don't. I mean, find me these people that don't want Mariota as a backup, man. I think he would be great.
What about some of the other names that you're hearing? And I'll tell you, I really don't like some of these names. Here's one. Edison says trade for Matt Ryan. I thought Matt Ryan was done. Not a fan.
No, no,
Val
I
Ramos says
he
Jarrett
looks washed.
Stidham from the Raiders. Played
Sure.
well against the Niners.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, again, as a third string for sure. Yes, absolutely. I think Stidham would be a fine option. If Stidham had to come in and play for the 49ers, do I think that he could win games with this roster? Yes, I do. I believe that. And that's essential. It's very essential at this point.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting. I kind of think that Mariota is interesting from the standpoint of Mariota, in my opinion, Jesse, is the best guy that you can get who could start games, but also could be satisfied as the number 3 quarterback. You know what I mean? And I would say you might be able to get him for 6-7 million. He made 9.3 this year. What would you want to pay the third quarterback?
Oh man. So the reason I don't think he would be satisfied as the third guy is because they had a crazy ending in Atlanta because he wasn't the guy down the stretch. So now you're going to say you wanted to be the guy, you were willing to leave a franchise and kind of break character. I mean, that's not Mariota's character at all. I mean, at Oregon he was beloved, in the NFL he's been nothing but a team guy, and now all of a sudden he breaks character because he wasn't going to be the starter the rest of the year and felt like he should be. So now he's going to be the third string guy. Unless I'm just reading that situation wrong and maybe there was a promise of some sort that Atlanta broke and that's why he acted that way. I don't know. But that's why I don't think he would be willing to be the third string guy. However, if he was willing, what would I pay him? I mean, I think anything 8 million or less I'd be comfortable with.
Yeah.
I think
A
that's
couple
fair.
last ones before we let you go, because there's some we could talk all night, but there's I want to let you get on with the rest of your night. John Lynch explained down in Indy why Steve Wilkes was a great fit with the Niners. In your opinion, how is a will? I mean, there's still a lot of players that have to be added, and a lot of it's based on your personnel, what kind of defense you play. I mean, if you have corners, you maybe play man. If you don't have corners, maybe you play a ton of zone. Um, Wilkes is kind of known to play zone, and then he'll send 5 and 6 man rushes at the quarterback and maybe blitz a little bit more than D'Amico. What do you expect a Steve Wilkes defense to look different than what we've seen this year?
I think a lot of that depends on Shanahan. I mean, one thing we have learned, I feel like over the last 2 years, is that Shanahan has a lot of say in the defense. A lot of say. He's the one that chooses who starts. And so I think that he also chooses a lot of that scheme and what they run and what he's comfortable with. One thing that I loved that Lynch backed up, which is kind of the thought that I think a lot of us had who had done our homework on Wilkes, is that personality wise, he's an exact fit with this team. And what they had in Sala, what they had in D'Amico, they now keep in Wilkes, which is important. They're getting a guy who can galvanize the troops. Opposite of Shanahan in that front, as far as he's willing to show a lot of emotion on the sidelines and be a rah-rah guy, which I think is a great contrast for a guy like Shanahan. Very different than what Fangio would have brought to the table. And so I think that personality fit is mainly the reason that he is here. And to your point, I think he's a little bit more aggressive of a blitzer. But what I would expect to see is a really tight secondary. And it sounds like Gibson's going to be back. Bosa even talked about that he thinks Mosley's going to be back. So they're going to have the talent there. And Wilkes is known to be a defensive back guy. I think that secondary will take over as the strength of this defense, which that hasn't been the case for a long time. The linebackers are still going to be very good. But when I talk about that front four or that secondary, I think that secondary is going to be the strength over the front four going forward with Wilkes and some of those players that it sounds like are coming back.
You think Gibson comes back? You think Mosley comes back? You think Jimmy comes back? Or you think they
I
all
don't.
move
I don't
on?
think Jimmy comes back, but Bosa said on with Sherman that he believes that Mosley will be back. And then rumor came out. Well, not rumor. Lynch talked about it, that there's mutual interest between Gibson and the 49ers, that Gibson's not necessarily done. And if he's going to play for a team, it's going to likely be the 49ers. So I think Gibson and Mosley are both back, it sounds like.
Interesting. Who do you think potentially could be a cap casualty? Who do you think is a restructure candidate?
Oh, cap casualties. They don't, I mean, they don't really have a lot of those on the team. I mean, I don't know if there's a cap casualty. Restructures, I think it's pretty clear cut. The guys that you want to restructure are cornerstone guys that are under 30. That's your Fred Warner. That's your CMC. You obviously are going to extend Bosa. Now, the timing of that matters because if you don't do it until August, then you've got a bunch of money sitting there that is not going to be able to be spent. The guys I would stay away from are Armstead, Kittle, and Trent Williams because they're all on the wrong side of 30 this next year. And the guy that's on the bubble is Charvarius Ward. So if you feel like you need that money, Charvarius Ward is the guy you tap into. You don't tap into those other three. So for me, for sure, CMC, for sure, Fred Warner, extend Bosa. That gets you around 38 million with the 8 million you have now. So around 38 total. Then you have another 8 or so million with the Charvarius Ward. Those are the guys that I'm willing to do. I'm not doing it for anybody else.
Two last ones. Tight end. How do you feel about the tight ends? I mean, obviously they've got George Kittle, but then after that, I mean, it's a dramatic drop off. Yeah. And Croft got overwhelmed by Reddick. Dwelly's not even as good a blocker as Croft. It seems like the two tight end set, especially if Brock Purdy is your guy, might be, a very popular formation for the Niners, but you got to have a second legitimate tight end that can be, a receiver, but also is strong enough to block. Otherwise, people are going to kind of know what you're doing. They need kind of a well-rounded second tight end. Where do you put tight end on the list of needs, even though you got George Kittle?
I mean, I would say it's probably assuming, well, I mean, I can't assume anything. We don't know who's coming back for sure. We just talked about guys that I think are coming back based off of what other players have said. But I would say number one right now, as the roster sits, would be a safety. You need a starting safety. You don't have that right now. I would say number two would be defensive line, probably. Then offensive line and nickel corner. And then I would say tight end. However, I am prioritizing tight end in the draft. So when I look at it, I think a lot of those holes that I just talked about, you're going to want to fill through free agency, at least some of the depth. And I think if you can go tight end with one of those compensatory picks or a 4th round pick, I'm willing to do that. I think it's that important because I do think they do need a second guy. I would prioritize a pass catcher. And if I'm the 49ers, when I go 2 tight end sets and I'm looking for blockers or I'm trying to develop that second tight end, that young tight end, what's wrong with throwing Juszczyk out there to be that second guy? I mean, he only gets a minimal amount of snaps. He's getting paid a crap ton anyways.
Seriously, get your money.
He can catch. He can block. Make him be your second tight end in some of these sets while you're developing another guy to possibly be the guy when George Kittle moves on.
One from the chat, Edison says, what is the 49ers window to win the Super Bowl with this current team? 2 or 3 seasons? Where do you put the Niner window as far as championship window? Because I mean, I'll say this, they're definitely in the tail end of their window. There's definitely got to be some increased urgency. It's like when I hear names like Rodgers and Brady, I'm like, wow, that's pretty dramatic. But it also kind of speaks to the fact that the window has been open and they have been able to get it done, and then they can start to see it starting to close, and teams react differently when they feel that pressure. How long is this window for this current group?
Man, I'm kind of on a different side here. I don't think the window's open. I think it's unlocked. You
don't think it's open right now yet?
No, not unless you have a quarterback. I think you have the roster, but you have to have the quarterback figured out. And so maybe that guy is Brock Purdy. Maybe that guy is Trey Lance. Maybe you have to go get that guy. But I think the window's unlocked and ready to be thrown wide open once you get a quarterback. But the quarterback is the most important position, Larry. And it's not, I mean, this is a factual thing. You have, 58 Super Bowls now, 57 Super Bowls that have been played. Yeah. 44 have been won by Hall of Fame caliber quarterbacks. I mean, you need a quarterback.
Whoa,
yes.
I know that.
Yeah. So you need a quarterback. It's the most important position. Yes, you can't just have a quarterback, but you have to have a quarterback to likely win a Super Bowl. And right now, they don't have that for sure, guys. So, I mean, as far as the rest of the team goes, yeah, I mean, unless you are able to replace them on the fly, then you probably have 2 years. But that thing's not fully open until you get that quarterback locked down.
It's so interesting. But, if you look at the history of the Super Bowl, really, it's like 10% of the time. You can win a Super Bowl with a non-star quarterback, but it's like about 10% of the time. Every 10 years, there's a Nick Foles, there's a Trent Dilfer, there's a Jeff Hostetler, but it's literally only like once every decade that you see that happen. The rest of the time, it's won by franchise quarterbacks and all pros and pro bowlers and future Hall of Famers and all-time greats.
Yeah, and even then, like a lot of people love to throw in the Flacco and the Foles, but go look at those runs they made, Larry. They were the best quarterbacks in those playoffs. Foles threw for 900 yards in 3 games, 6 touchdowns and 1 interception. Flacco threw for like 1,200 yards in 4 games, 11 touchdowns and 0 interception. That's elite quarterback play for a 3 and 4 game stretch. That's not your average, hey, he was just carried to the Super Bowl. In fact, the last quarterback that was actually carried to a Super Bowl victory was Peyton Manning. Because Peyton Manning was shot that final year.
Totally.
He was shot.
It was the Von Miller show at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, Von carried him. This Waveware says JP Mason was criminally underused last season. He's a beast. I agree. Give me one player besides JP Mason that you would say, man, the Niners underused that guy horrendously last year. He should have been used way, way, way more. Is there a player that comes to mind?
Man. I mean, I think Jackson would have been that candidate, but he wore down towards the end of the season, from what I understand. So he wasn't. Womack.
I would probably go Womack or Ayuk.
Womack.
I thought Ayuk. Yeah. To me, it's like
actually, no. I'm going to change it because Womack would have been the guy, but we saw how good Lenore was, so it started to make sense. Obviously, Jimmy Ward played fantastic down the stretch, so that made sense. Danny Gray. I mean, he couldn't even get on the field for multiple weeks.
I know, that's a good call.
At least to run some routes and be the clear out guy. I think Danny Gray was probably that player.
Last one. Will you watch the combine? Is there a player or two or a position group that or a drill? You know, everybody, some people do watch the combine, some people don't. I'm one of those people that do, but I to me, there's lots of mistakes that are made at the combine. So I like to have a full accounting of who was good before the combine. And then I just try to look at the guys that were productive. And then if they work out great, then I really, think the world of them. But I don't take anybody who couldn't play, discover them at the combine, and then go back and justify, you know what I'm saying? It's like if you can play, I know it by now. I'm not going to learn that at Indy. I think where NFL teams make a mistake is they fall in love with guys who work out incredibly well, and then the tape's just not there to support it. And they're sitting there going, well, he ran this and he lifted that. And but the guy couldn't play dead. And you should have known that ahead of time. Is there some player or position group or drill that you'll watch from Indy?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a big combine guy, and I used to be a big draft guy, but this year, I mean, they're so late, I'm not as big into it. And it also is frustrating because you spend so much time on the draft. I mean, it's a lot to learn these guys, watch film on these guys, not highlights, but watch film on these guys, read about these guys. And then you fall in love with these players that don't end up getting picked by the 49ers. And you're like, oh my gosh, that was such a waste of time. So right now, I'm not as into it as I normally would be. However, if there's a position group that I'm going to pay attention to during this thing, it's going to be defensive tackle and it's going to be tight end. And defensive tackle, to me, again, is not that position that I'm going to pay a lot for usually. And I feel like you can find a big fat daddy that weighs 315 pounds or more that you can plug right in the middle and help your run defense and stick for the next 4 years on this roster, no problem. And I think you go find that through the draft. You don't overpay for it in free agency unless you're getting a transcendent talent, and you find that depth piece there that is a first and second down player and allow him to be that guy. And I think there's usually plenty of those if you're sneaky about it, and they're there late in the draft a lot of times.
Yeah, no question. Look at DJ Jones, right? Exactly. I mean, DJ Jones was a tremendous 6th round draft choice. I kind of like Zach Pickens out of South Carolina. We'll see what he looks like in Indy in the workouts. So awesome stuff, Jesse. Tell people, lots of people still in the chat. If you're, a lot of them are finding the show for the first time. If you could hit like and subscribe, that would be awesome. It would help out the show and help out the channel. But Jesse, tell people what you have going on your channel the rest of the week.
Yeah. Tomorrow we're going to do the open mic. So that's the call-in show. It's your day to sound off. Nice. It's my way of giving the channel back to you. You guys are the reason that the channel exists. You are the reason that the channel stays up. And because of that, I feel like I owe it. I'll give you a day back, and it's always open mic night. And that happens to be tomorrow night around 9 p.m. Eastern. So tap in over at Last Second Sports. Hit subscribe. We're chasing 10,000. We're like just over 100 away from 10,000. So we're so close to getting there.
That is awesome. Have you ever done anything with Wayne Breezy?
I have. We've done, I think, 2 shows. Yeah.
So tomorrow, Wayne Breezy's coming on my show for the first time, and I'm going on his show on Friday. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to what's Wayne Breezy's vibe like. Is he he's been doing this a while, huh?
Yeah, he has. He's he's a lot of fun. He's a lot of fun. He's very animated. You'll enjoy Wayne. I think you'll enjoy Wayne. Yeah, he's very animated.
All right, man. Always good to wrap with you. Have, the off season, even in the off season where there's like, not tons of stuff. Once you really start getting into, kind of the comments and the prospects and the possibilities and all of it, it's just, we've been going for an hour and 10 minutes. So I appreciate your time, man. Yeah. I'll let you get on with your night. And dude, I love rapping with you. I love having you on. So maybe we can do this on the semi-regular and I
feel like it's kind of been regular. I feel like I've been here a few weeks in a row, and I know,
man, you're good. And the audience, my audience really digs you. And I get a lot of good comments about you during the week. Even like, some stuff like let's say you do something with Grant or you did something on your channel and somebody will be in the chat and be like, hey, Jesse just said, and a lot of times it's like really good stuff that kind of launches new conversations. So,
well, that's cool, man.
I appreciate your candor, but I also just appreciate your kind of level-headed approach to, Niner discussions. It's like you've got your own thoughts, but you're pretty level-headed about it, and most of your reasoning, totally jives with exactly what I'm thinking, and so it appeals to me. So I'd love to have you back, man. Really. Phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, I've had you have me on a few times, Ryan Hensley. And this is, as you know, this is a hard time of season to come up with content. You were just talking about it, but
yeah,
I definitely want to have both of you on, but I'm not going to do it just to do it. So I'm going to have Larry on over at Last Second Sports, but I got to make sure that I got at least 5 good topics where we're going to get some worth out of it before I just have Larry on. Like, it can't just be a regular show. So Larry, I'm going to have you on Last Second Sports too. Just know that. But it's got to be something good. So it'll happen here soon, but we got to have some good topics to discuss.
We got to have some grist for the mill. We got to have some grist for the mill. Jesse, Absolutely. You're the man. Have a great night out in Florida, and I appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, Larry. Thank you.
Take care, man. The great Jesse Naylor. Follow his channel. He's really, really good. And you guys all know that. We are sponsored by Pig and a Pickle. Check them out in Emeryville. Check them out in Corte Madera. Get the brisket chili, the potato chips cooked in beef fat. They've got kids menus. They've got phenomenal. If you can order out, they're open 7 days a week in Marin from 11 a.m. in the morning to 8 p.m. But don't walk in there at 7:30 thinking you're getting your pick, because it's barbecue, right? So they run out of brisket, they run out of ribs, they run out of sausages, they run out of barbecue chicken from time to time. So just know that going in, but it's a great spot. Pig and a Pickle. Check them out. As I said, they're in Corte Madera, and they're also in Emeryville. And thanks to Damon and Mary for being proud sponsors of the Krueger Show. And now here's another word or a little video on Pig and a Pickle. And welcome back to the Krug Show. Big thanks to Casey Bateman and the good people at Telmetrics for being proud sponsors of the Krug Show. Telmetrics is, if you're an occupational therapist or an orthopedic surgeon, a chiropractor, or a physical therapist, Telmetrics is designed for you to use in your practice and can greatly benefit your patients. If you're a weekend warrior, you hurt your shoulder, you haven't gone to a doctor, you're looking for ways to rehab it, and you don't know exactly how or what you should do, check out this as a resource, telmetrics.co, telmetrix.co. And last but not least, special thanks to a sponsor of today's show as well, New York Style Italian Sausage. Thanks to them, try the New York Style Italian Sausage. The Italian Mild and the Italian Spicy are my two favorites, but they've got breakfast sausage, chorizo, New York Style Italian Sausage, often imitated, never equaled.
So New York Style Sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York Style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never gonna deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
Hey, do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York Style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it, guaranteed.
All right, welcome back to the Krug Show. Thanks to New York Style Italian Sausage, Telmetrics, and Pig in a Pickle are sponsors of the Krug Show. And thanks to all of you. Hit like and subscribe. If you hit like, that helps the algorithm have more people find our shows. And if you hit subscribe, you'll be alerted every single time we go live. And just checking our total. Where are we at? We are at 14,634 subscribers. So 14,634 subscribers. Hit like and subscribe. Help us get to 15,000. We'd love to get to 15,000 by the end of the week. But I just want to thank all of you for participating. Val Ramos says, great show. We appreciate you, Val. Jim Everett the Great says, sausage, chorizo, Italian sausage, very popular in San Francisco. Tomorrow on the Krug Show, Vish Kumaran stops by. Vish will be here tomorrow night at 5:30. Wayne Breezy's going to stop by tomorrow at noon. We also have Warrior basketball tomorrow night. Warriors and Clippers go tomorrow night. We'll come at you after that game. So after Warriors Clippers, we'll be on for a little live stream. Jay Mill says, Larry, are you a hockey fan? Yes, I am. I go to the Shark Tank 3-4 times a year. I love going to the Shark Tank. Clarsard 49 says Krug equals GOAT. I don't know about that, but I appreciate the kind words. But yeah, Vish tomorrow at 5:30 on the channel. That's Pacific time. Wayne Breezy is going to stop by at noon Pacific. And then tomorrow night, probably around 9:30 Pacific, We'll go post game Warriors Clippers, and hopefully Cyrus and Rye and Danny and maybe Red if Red's feeling better, maybe Carl Foster, maybe Kylan. We'll have a full house, I'm sure, tomorrow night. And then I'm hoping to get Danny to play some of his interviews. He's been down in the desert talking a little baseball. So thanks to Danny for doing all that. He's hustling. Waveware says Krueger's the man. Thank you. I would have read that if you said I'm not the man. Of course, you know that's not true. All right. And then Friday, I'm going to be on Wayne Breezy's channel at 11 a.m. And then Ryan Hensley is going to join me Friday at 2 o'clock. And then Grant, we were going to usually Grant and I hook up on Monday, but I was so busy this week. And then Tuesday wound up being busy. So Grant is going to be on I'm going to be on his channel, I should say, tomorrow or Friday at 3:30. So check me on Grant Cohn's channel Friday at 3:30. We'll have a lot to talk about there, but a lot of good live streams. Also, one thing I just put out, and I just finished taping before the show tonight, a video on the dozen players that I'm going to be looking for at the combine. So look for that video coming out. Should have that out either tonight or tomorrow. But yeah, it's the dozen players that I'm going to be keeping my eyes on at the combine. And I'll say this: there's a lot of edge rushers. There's a lot of defensive ends that I really want to see them work out. I really want to see their flexibility. I want to see their get off. I want to see their the weightlifting. I want to just see how these guys work out. There'll be lots of rumors coming out of the combine later in the week. We'll spit some of those out over the next couple days as well. We'll do some videos, but check out that video, the top dozen players I'm keeping my eye on at the combine. And I'll say this, I probably should have added a 13th because Anthony Richardson out of Florida, the quarterback, is definitely one guy that I did not have on the list, but I will be looking at. Anthony Richardson, I think, is going to blow up the combine. The Florida quarterback is 6'3", 230. He's strong. He's fast. He might be closer to 240, 245. I'm really eager to see what he weighs in at. I'm really eager to see if he throws, what he looks like. Certain years the quarterbacks throw in Indy. Other years they don't. My sleeper quarterback that I really like in this draft is Clayton Tune out of Houston. So I'll be looking for him in the combine quite a bit. And there's a bunch of D tackles and DNs I'm going to keep my eye on throughout the thing. And then there's some small school guys. Stephon Pierre, a linebacker from Fort Valley State. I think it's Fort Valley State. I have to look that up again. But Stephon Pierre, I saw him in the HBCU All-Star game last weekend. He's a linebacker who plays at Albany State. I said Fort Valley State. He plays at Albany State. You got to see this guy. He wears number 30, Stephon Pierre. He is just all over the place, making plays, tackles, sideline to sideline. Just some great stuff. So check him out, Stephon Pierre. Ryan Hensley's in the chat. Hey, Ryan, I was just promoting that we're hooking up later this week. So Ryan will be on the channel on the Krug Show, and we're looking forward to that. Ryan is outstanding. Everybody should go check out Ryan's channel. Ryan does a great job. And we just we hooked up a few weeks ago, and I thought, you know what? I like this guy a lot. And so Friday at 2 o'clock, Ryan's going to stop by the Krug Show, and I'm really looking forward to that. So big Friday, Ryan Hensley on my channel, me on Grant's channel on Friday, and then tomorrow Vish on my channel and Wayne Breezy on my channel. So tomorrow should be good. Friday should be good. Really having a great time. So I really appreciate all of you guys for being here. Ryan says, can't wait to talk to you as well on Friday. Everybody go check out Ryan's channel. Ryan, type in the name of your channel here before you get out of the chat. So we can promote it correctly for you. But yeah, I was on with Ryan on his channel, just kind of an impromptu QB meeting the other day, and I enjoyed it. And then Ryan's had some really strong commentary on the quarterbacks and on Trey. Some really, really good stuff. Anybody in any medium that makes me think critically and makes me, so it's just his name, Ryan G. Hensley. That's what his YouTube channel is under. And someone says, what's Dan's channel? Dan's channel is NorCal Sports Network. NorCal Sports Network. But Ryan's channel is Ryan G. Hensley. But what I was going to say about Ryan is just that I like people who challenge me to think beyond the walls of what I'm thinking about. And Ryan does that for me. I find him really interesting. And a lot of the things that he says are things that I haven't thought about, or at least I haven't thought about him kind of the way that he phrases them. And I really like that. So I love people who kind of stretch my boundaries and kind of make me look at things through new prisms. And I hope I'm trying to do the same for you guys. But when I find people like that, those are the kinds of people I want on my channel. And those are the kinds of people I like to collab with. So as you can see, Grant Cohn, Jesse Naylor, Vish Kumaran, Ryan Hensley, Kyle Posey, Jordan Elliott. These are the kinds of guys that I think they don't just look at the Niners and the whole story and just, it is, there's like passion. Everybody brings like a different vibe, but there's great passion around this brand. And you know me, man, I could talk Niner ball with anybody, but I really most enjoy talking it with these guys that I found through this YouTube experience. So anyway, thanks to all of them. Thanks to all of you guys. If you haven't hit like and subscribe, please do. And until tomorrow, have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow on the Krueger Show.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't need to hassle. Yeah.